Welcome to Transforming and Thriving with best friends Brooke and Stacie,
a podcast dedicated to women sharing their inspirational stories.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Stacie, and I'm so excited today to have Erin Koppel as a guest on our show. I met Erin at Club Pilates, where I've been teaching as a Pilates instructor for 9 years now, and she recently became my manager, so I guess Erin's my boss. Erin is a light everywhere she goes. We connected instantly when we met, and since then, she has brought positive energy to Club Pilates. In addition to being a studio manager at Club Pilates, she's a level 2 Legree instructor at Trim Fitness Studio. She also has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology with an emphasis on clinical movement, and she's been working on her nutritional coaching certification. She was born and raised in New Jersey and has been living in California since she graduated high school.
Thank you so much for being here, Erin. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. We're
Great.
good. It's starting to get cold on the East Coast.
I know. I'm like so jealous of all my friends that are like, actually, though, there was like a heat wave there the other day. My friend was chatting with me and she's like, it's hot over here and it's colder here in California. So maybe I am happy to be here.
It's been a roller coaster of weather, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now, I know you're here to share about a pretty traumatic event that took place in your childhood. And I just want to say how much we appreciate you being so willing to share and be so vulnerable with our podcast community. Can you share a little bit more about this event that had such a profound impact on you?
Yeah. So when I was 10 years old, my mom wanted to take my dad to the doctor just to get a checkup and some x-rays and some testing done. And they brought him to the hospital just to get all the imaging and everything. And then they saw that his lung was actually pushed over. So they wanted to keep him overnight, just to see like what was going on and, why that was. And he was admitted to the hospital. It was a very quick 5 weeks, 3 different hospitals. He was diagnosed with kidney cancer that metastasized to his lungs. It was very quick, and after 5 weeks, he actually passed away. So it was very, very fast, very quick, very unexpected. So,
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I can't even imagine, and just what a whirlwind of finding that out and just having things go downhill so quickly, and just at such a young age. I can't even imagine how I would process that at that age. How did you find strength and courage during that dark time?
Yeah. So I was 10 years old when this happened. It was when he passed away. It was actually 6 days before my birthday. Which I'm always like, so every time I celebrate his anniversary, I'm like, this month is like a whirlwind because I love birthdays. I love my birthday. I love celebrating. But like, that 6 days before, it's always a hard thing to reminisce on and remember. But I found, solitude in my family, my immediate family, my mom, and my 2 brothers. We kind of rallied together and got through it. I'm Jewish, so we sat Shiva, which is something that you do when you lose an immediate family member. You are in your house, you're not to cook, go anywhere. Everyone's supposed to come to you and kind of just bring food, and you sit around, you talk about memories, and it's supposed to be an uplifting time. So I had a lot of people in my house. So many people showed up, and my house was never not full that whole week. So looking back, it was actually nice, to have family and friends there. And it's weird because after that week, you're just kind of supposed to go back to your everyday life. I had to go back to school. I was in 5th grade. My oldest brother, Brandon, was in college. So he had to go back to New York to go finish out his last semester of his 2nd year. And then my middle brother, Brett, was in high school. I believe he was a sophomore or a junior. So we're just all expected to kind of go back, and no one prepares you for such a tragedy, a quick tragedy that you're not really expecting to happen. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which looking back, I'm so grateful for. She was there to do everything. If she was grieving, I didn't see it. I didn't know. And I know she was. That was the love of her life. They were best friends before they got married. Their love story is my favorite. And so looking back now that I'm 30 and I'm an adult, I'm like, I don't know how she raised 3 kids and continued to just rally on as if she didn't just, also experienced a traumatizing event in her life. So I take solitude and gratitude for my mom and my brothers for sure.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like having family around was extremely helpful. It sounds like you had, I mean, a lot of people just band together and show up, which that sounds beautiful. I've heard of Shiva. I didn't know much about it. So it's interesting to hear. And that's, I mean, such a beautiful thing that, took place for you and probably a beautiful part of your culture that helped you in that time. But I can't imagine like having all of that support and then all of a sudden, okay, a week later, you're supposed to just be, okay, done with grieving, now back to normal, now back to reality, whatever that means.
Yeah. And I remember like going back to school and my whole class got like kind of talked to by the counselors and someone went to the class and basically said, this is what Erin has gone through. When she comes back after being gone for a week, don't ask questions. There's no reason to pry or anything. We're all 10-year-olds, and however they did. But I remember kind of wanting to talk about it. I like went into school and I'm like, okay, most of you know where I was and what's going on. And I kind of wanted to share, like, yeah, it's just a weird thing to go through. And I don't know, it's just having a loss at such a young age like that. It's just, I'm never going to see this person again. I'm never going to talk to them again. How do I grow up now? What happens now? And who can you talk to about that, So it was definitely an interesting thing to look back on and remembering those feelings and everything that I went through.
Yeah, absolutely. And adults and children process things so differently,
Right.
and grieve so differently. So, and I'm sure some children might not want to talk about it, but for you, that's something that probably would have helped you navigate things more or process things more. That must have just been really hard to act like nothing was wrong and go about your everyday. So, on that note, looking back, is there anything that you feel would have been helpful for you during that time?
Yeah. So I know I mentioned during Shiva, my house was full. When Shiva ended, there was nobody. So that's something that also people don't prepare you for is like, you need support. You need, especially a grieving single mom of 3, she needs help. She needs support. You wouldn't have known it. Like, I don't say that meaning she needed help. You can tell she was like struggling because you couldn't. She was really doing it all for all of us. But she needed someone to talk to. She needed support. And my house was full. There were so many people. And I look back and I'm like, where did they go after that? And I don't say that meaning, oh, they should have, I don't know, been there every day or, but a phone call or let's make plans, let's get people together. So that's, kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about today is that kind of fear of abandonment and what happens when you lose a parent and you feel abandoned by them. Even though it wasn't his fault that he left, even though he didn't choose for that to happen, you kind of feel like, well, I'm left on this earth to go through the rest of my life and you're not here. And then when your family kind of goes off and they're doing their own thing, you feel abandoned by them as well. So actually to this day, I don't really have a relationship with most of my dad's side of the family, even though they were all there with me and I was very close with a lot of them. We no longer have a relationship. And to me, it's surprising because my dad was the kindest soul. He helped raise his siblings and he was so involved and just wanted that family. And I know if, God forbid, the tables were ever reversed, he would have made sure that his brother's family were taken care of and things like that, where it just didn't feel like that for us. And so that's why when I look back, I really give credit to my mom and my brothers. We just have to rally together and we supported each other. And that's kind of what I'm so thankful for to this day.
Yeah, it sounds like your mom is a very strong woman from just the way you're describing her. And I can't imagine what that was like for her. But, it sounds like, I mean, she kind of had to rally. Like you said, you guys all rallied together. She had to rally too because she had these, beautiful children to take care of and still had, purpose and had to keep going. And it sounds like it brought you, like your immediate family, closer together, but was a huge loss with other members of your family. And where did everyone go after the first week of Shiva? Like, which is a good reminder. A lot of times I think we go through something or someone that we're close to goes through something and everyone rallies together at first. And then it's like people forget as time goes on. Yeah. Okay. There's still a lot of support that is needed. And your feelings don't just like the trauma or the grief. It doesn't just go away instantly after a week or a month or whatever. people are still going to need regular check-ins and support.
Right.
So I'm wondering what else, I guess, during that time or early on, were you able to do for yourself, or did you find that helped you to kind of cope with the pain and the loss and everything that you were going through?
Yeah, it's really weird. Looking back, I always think, and I don't know if at the time this was my thought going through, everything that I was, but I kind of was like, okay, life is short and I'm going to do what it is I need to do and what I want to do. So I remember wanting to work. Like I wanted to make money and work and like help my mom because I'm like, she's a single mom. She's doing this all on her own. And I want to be able to pay for myself. I want to be able to, like, when I go to the movies with friends, use my own money. And my mom talks about it to this day. She's like, she never asked me to. She never said, I need you to get a job. I need you to work. After I went through middle school and all of that, once I got into high school, we actually moved to a different town. Not too far from where I had already grown up, but we didn't need that big house anymore. My brother was in college and things were, we needed to get out and move on. And so we moved to a different house. And I remember as soon as I could, like first year that I was there, I became like a CIT, which is a counselor in training, meaning I don't get paid that summer, but if I do well that summer, then the next summer I'm offered a job and I can be a camp counselor for kids. So I did that every summer in high school. I got a job at a retail store. I was a server at a restaurant. Like I just was like, any way I can make money and save and do just so that I can support myself and not have to rely on anyone else. That was something that I really remember taking in and thinking. I also remember thinking, what can I do to help and be there for other people? Because I never want anyone to feel that kind of abandonment that I felt. So I still to this day really pride myself on just trying to be a good friend, just trying to show up for the people that I love. I'm grateful for all my friendships that I formed as an adult. It's really hard to make friends when you're a grown woman and moving across the country and living in California, but I really have such a great circle now around me, and I just always want to make sure I'm genuine and I stay true to who I am, because I know that I've seen the ugly in the world and I've seen the ugly in people, and I never want someone to look at me that way. I would never want to give that.
Well, clearly you're such an empathetic person, and this tragedy strengthened that quality in you. I'm just so sorry that you had to experience life growing up without your father. That must have been so challenging. I also am so impressed at how you've taken this situation and created meaning from it. You've truly leaned into making the best out of such a difficult situation. In what ways do you feel the loss of a parent has impacted you?
Yeah, I definitely look back and I'm like, there's definitely a lot of negatives to losing a parent of the opposite sex, like being a daughter and not having my dad, to teach me relationships and like just have that male figure. So I'm always grateful to my two brothers because I'm like, they helped raise me, and they've been such a light in my life still to this day. But I remember being in high school, my oldest brother, Brandon, decided to move to California first. So I was in New Jersey and he's like, I'm moving to California. And I remember just being devastated. I'm like, he's abandoning me. He's leaving me and he's going across the country. Like, that's how I viewed it. It was a very negative thought process to have. Like, I just felt like, why can't people just stay? Why can't they stay in my bubble and just not, they don't need to go anywhere. Like, we can all just be together. And it kind of makes me laugh looking back because I know now that he needed to do this for his career. It was for him to step out of his comfort zone. He needed a change. But I just remember I was like, I'm so sad that he's moving. And right after he moved, actually like a couple months later, he flew me out. So I spent Thanksgiving with him in California. I had never been to California and I wanted to see him and I was visiting. I ended up moving here obviously 2 years later after I graduated high school, and I lived like 15 minutes from him. He travels a lot for work, so I didn't get to see him as often as obviously when we lived together, but it was just nice knowing he was right there. And then a couple years later, my middle brother came out, and with him, his name's Brett, and he's such a light in people's lives, but he's the one that took it the hardest when my dad passed away. They had a bond very strong with sports, and my brother was a baseball player, and they did everything together. And I remember there was a period of time where he and I were just very disconnected. I was in high school, he was very alone and just we didn't hang out much, we didn't talk much. He just was dealing with his traumas in his own way, and that felt like disconnection, and that could have been perceived as abandonment, even though that wasn't his decision. It's just how he was taking himself through this hardship and not knowing how to grow from it. And so it always felt, specifically on the male side too, that there was just this abandonment from the men in my family that I didn't have. And so that really took me into relationships. When I started forming friendships and relationships, especially with men, I was just always afraid someone was just going to leave and not going to be here. And it's a sad truth that I don't think people who have gone through a loss like that really prepare you for.
Yeah, I think that looking at what you went through at such a young age, you went through a trauma, and that was followed by some significant changes to your environment, your family, extended family, maybe pulling back because of their own grieving. I could see how a child might perceive that as abandonment. And, you're still learning what relationships are and what the give and take of a relationship is. And so to have so much change go on at such a young age and loss at such a young age, it absolutely makes sense. And I really appreciate you sharing. Is there any advice that you would have given your younger self?
Yeah, I think when I look at my younger self, I wish I could have told her that you didn't have to choose, especially my high school teenage self, like ages 14 to 18 or 17. I wish I could tell her that you don't have to choose relationships that are messy or people that are messy because you think that if they leave, it's okay because the situation was negative, if that makes sense. I was always preparing for the worst. So I chose people that played games or weren't giving me the respect that I deserved. And I chased after people that were like not interested or, it was a lot of mind games, a lot of that teenage, which I think most teenage women go through. But knowing the why behind I was doing it is because if I met someone that was going to be the love of my life at the time, and then they leave or it doesn't work out, it's a hard reality to kind of sit with. And so it was easier for me to go and pick the people that were a little messy and people that weren't treating me with respect.
You're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, self-protection. And it's just incredible to hear like the maturity and the level of insight and like self-awareness that you have around all of this too. That's a beautiful thing, I think. And just now it sounds like you've come to a place where you are able to look back and kind of have this perspective on like, okay, this is why I was doing all those things. And hopefully like giving yourself some grace with all of it and understanding, like Brooke said, that's a trauma that you went through early in life. And it completely makes sense why you would have some of those fears and act that way. It's completely self-protection.
Yeah, I wish I could say I got there quickly. It, of course, took me a long time to come to that realization. I've done a lot of therapy. I do narrative therapy now. I love my therapist, and it is really helpful to look back and see, why am I the person that I am? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing and reacting the way that I'm reacting? I'm a very reactive person. Sometimes it's really not a positive thing that I am. And so being able to kind of take a step back and look at that really helps me. And then I did want to share too that, there's a lot of independence that comes with losing a parent or losing anybody. When anyone goes through loss, you kind of have to take yourself up and say, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? I take it a step further, this is something that I've just come to a realization about. I want to do everything that I can right now because I don't know if I'm going to have tomorrow to do it or a year to do it. And so it's like almost rushing through life because I want to be able to experience everything, which can be a positive, but I do take it as it's also a negative. I don't need to rush through everything. I am grateful for my experiences that I've had, but it's really just kind of embracing a slower pace and not needing to take everything head on. But, my mom and my dad had all these plans together. Erin's going to go off to college. You and I are going to travel the world. You and I are going to go on all of our date nights and back to our honeymoon spot and all the things. And they didn't get to do it. They didn't get to do any of it. And so that was a trauma for me. I'm like seeing my mom so hurt by that and saddened by that tragic loss that she couldn't experience her probably most exciting memories with my dad, for her to be able to not make those memories and not have that really just put things into perspective to me. And I take it both positive and negative.
it sounds like you try to savor every moment and, not wait until tomorrow, and make sure that you're making the most of every day and doing as much as you can and not taking it for granted. And then finding that balance of doing that, but not feeling like you're rushing through life and still enjoying everything as you go and slowing down. It's like this balance, right? That
Yeah.
we all continue to try to strive for. Well, I really appreciate you sharing and being so open. And I feel like this is a topic that can be so meaningful and hit home for so many people. And I hope that this episode has an opportunity to reach a lot of people who maybe need to hear some of these messages or feel like they're not alone. Or maybe some of the things that you've shared can help someone who has someone in their life going through something similar to kind of know maybe how to reach out to them or how to provide support or to continue to provide the support after the first week, I really appreciate you sharing. And I want to make sure that the local listeners to Orange County know where to find you.
Yeah.
So not only are you the manager over at the Club Pilates Aliso Viejo, the new one that I love coming to visit, but you also, I have to come take one of your Legree classes, by the way. You're currently teaching Legree at Trim Fitness Studio in Lake Forest. You teach Monday mornings, right? 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, and then Thursdays, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, and then Sundays, 7 and 8 a.m.
Yep.
All right. And then do you want me to share where people can find you on your Instagram also? Just in
Yeah,
case?
they can follow me and follow along my Legree journey and all the things fitness.
Awesome. So it's at ErinKoppel. I'll put all this in the show notes too. So if people are actually reading the written show notes, we'll have all that info in there also. And I need to come take a Legree class. I'm a little scared, but
So much fun. It's so empowering, mind-body connection. It's really great. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I was in the area. Maybe when I come to visit California again.
Yes, you should definitely take a class.
Well, thank you for sharing your story today. Your strength and vulnerability is really inspiring. And as Stacie said, I think will really hit home and resonate with a lot of people, either trying to navigate it themselves or trying to help someone else navigate such loss. Loss is never easy. And these reminders are really important during these times. It's easy to feel alone. And I do feel that your message can help people feel like they're not alone. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, I think it's a nice reminder that even when you go through something hard, when you have, a really big trauma in your life, you can still accomplish things and change your mind and go back to school multiple different times and change your career paths, like just to do whatever makes you happy, because you only have one life and it is pretty short.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me and giving a platform for women to come and talk about their stories. It's really been amazing.
Thank you. Well, we're happy to have you. I feel honored that you agreed to come on. So
thank you.
To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of Transforming and Thriving. We'll be back every other Monday with more inspiring stories. Please follow us on your favorite podcast app and follow us on Instagram so you can be a part of this community and stay up to date with each episode. Feel free to leave a review so that we can get your valuable feedback and other people can find these powerful stories. We're all in this crazy life together, so let's move through it together. See you there.